Hey everyone, my name is Catherine Brown. Just want to welcome you into the very first episode of Biz-Tech Blueprint. It's a brand new webinar series that we're starting, and we'll get into some details on that in just a few moments. We'll get underway now. It's about 2 o'clock, and just want to address some housekeeping issues right off the bat and let you know that this webinar is being recorded. You will get a copy emailed to you sometime tomorrow. And the webinar does have a Q&A. So if you have any questions or any thoughts, be sure and put them in the Q&A section. We really want this to be engaging and interesting for all of you. So if you have something that you'd like us to address here on this episode, just drop it in the Q&A section. We'll try to get to it. If for some reason we can't get to it on this episode, we'll try to email you a response in the next day or so. So again, we would love your thoughts, love your feedback, and mainly your questions, because we want to address the issues that you are interested in and make sure you're getting a lot out of this. So with that, also want to say hello to our Facebook audience who is joining us. And Facebook audience, if you have any questions, just drop them in the comment section there. At our social media whiz, Brittany will zip them over to us, and we will try to answer those as well. So again, thank you for joining us. Welcome to our very first episode of Biz-Tech Blueprint. It's a brand new series. We're super excited about it. My name is Catherine Brown. I'm the PR director here at INE, and I will be leading today's webinar. I'm joined by Richard McLain, who is the CEO of INE. It is one of the leading IT firms in the world. And since beginning his journey with INE about a decade ago, Richard has focused on creating an IT platform that's attracted students all over the world and really offers top-notch training to all over the place. It offers top-notch value, innovative learning techniques. And I think you'll find that Richard really embraces out-of-the-box thoughts and thinking, and that he has some really creative solutions that I think you'll get a lot of value out of, and that have proven to be really successful during his time at INE. So we look forward to hearing from you a little bit more, Richard. Neal Bridges is also joining us today. Neal, also noted there as Mr. Awesome, is apparently his nickname. Neal has built and led multiple global security operation centers for Fortune 100 companies. Neal owns his own company, Root Access Protection. And from his start at Cyber Command in the Air Force, Neal has been a leader in strategical, operational, and tactical areas of cybersecurity. So I think it's fair to say he knows a thing or two about what we'll be talking about today. So we're really excited to have Neal and Richard with us, as well as all of you joining us. Really appreciate you dropping in, and hope that we're able to address some topics that you can get a lot out of and that help your business grow and be successful. So just to give you a little background, Biz-Tech Blueprint is, as I mentioned, a brand new series. It's designed for top-level executives who are looking for some new strategies to safeguard their technological infrastructure. We'll focus on technology and cybersecurity sectors, but we'll go beyond that as well. We want to focus on emerging tech security trends, talent growth and retention strategies, cybersecurity awareness training, and much more. So again, we want this to be engaging and hear your ideas. So please pass them along, and we'll let you know more of how to do that at the end of this webinar. Today, we are focusing on smart investment strategies for recruiting and retaining top talent. And we want to explore some of the ways your business can benefit from implementing some very specific strategies when it comes to getting the best people in the door and then keeping them there and helping your business be as successful as it possibly can be. So Neal and Richard, hello. Thanks for joining us. Glad to have you here.
Thanks, Catherine. I appreciate it.
All right, I'm going to start with you, Neal. Some of the biggest challenges, let's set it up with this. When it comes to not just recruiting the best talent, but retaining, particularly in this current COVID environment where everyone is being kept so far apart. And it just makes for a lot of challenges in general. But what are some of the biggest challenges that IT teams are facing right now when it comes to attracting the best people and really keeping them within the company?
Oh, I think that's an excellent question, and I think we've all dealt with at some point in time, either in the cybersecurity space or in the IT space, just how challenging it can be to find talent, and then once you do find good talent, being able to continue to retain that talent, especially as the demographic continues to change of the folks that we bring into organizations, their needs, wants, and desires and demands continue to change and continue to evolve. Probably past some of the more traditional ways in which organizations are thinking about how to keep and maintain talent. On top of that, when you add in a lot of the challenges that just come with how our world and our technology is changing so fast, it really gets to make things, incredibly difficult. Let's take, just what we're dealing with now when it comes to COVID, where we've got this vast amount of forced remote working. That creates an abundance of cybersecurity and technological challenges that organizations have to try to adapt and try to build a workforce around. It's good and bad. In some cases, this environment has opened up some of the doors when it comes to talent retention, because now you're not just isolated to a certain metropolitan or geographic area when it comes to looking for talent. So I think it comes with a mix of both. But I know specifically on the cybersecurity side, I think that there's a statistic that's floating around out there that by 2021 or 2022, there's going to be somewhere upwards of about 3 million open cybersecurity job recs, and those are already in an incredibly competitive space when it comes to looking for top tier talent that's out there. I think on top of that, organizations are struggling, and I think that the demographic of folks who are coming up in IT and especially in the cybersecurity space, they're looking for a more flexible career path, so that they feel like they can experience multiple aspects of their technological journey when it comes to growing up and growing throughout their entire career. So I think that's probably what I would say is probably some of the biggest challenges. Richard, I don't know if you got anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say too, like, I think that now more than ever, it's really hard to keep people engaged. Before you would go into an office and you would have this setting where, you were talking to people on a daily basis, and, new people coming in would be surrounded by coworkers who would encourage them and show them how to do things and be able to kind of hand off knowledge in a much more traditional fashion of, hey, just look over my shoulder while I do this. And now it's so much more difficult, and things have to be much more deliberate. And I think a lot of the inherent kind of pass down training and encouragement and all those kind of things are not happening these days. And so I think it's even now more than ever kind of making sure that those actions are really deliberate and intentional in terms of getting new talent hired up. I mean, getting new talent trained up. And then also on the retention side, keeping the current staff that we have and keeping the current staff really engaged in what they're doing, and trying to create those moments that you might have had in a more traditional setting.
Yeah. Go ahead, Neal.
I was going to say, Richard, I think that's actually super key that you bring that up, right? Because you mentioned that interaction with folks. It's hard to do that traditional co-pilot model that you would do from in-house, where you could, watch somebody do their technical job and then have somebody right there beside you to kind of guide you through to show you what you did right and what you did wrong. It's hard to do that over a Zoom session.
Yeah, and I think that just really reinforces, when you look at kind of training somebody, how do you do it in a way that's really practical versus more theoretical? Because, you can hire a great person that has a lot of the theoretical knowledge, and it's just missing that kind of practical application that you would find in a specific job function. But, in this day, it's really hard to translate that to someone theoretical when they don't have that kind of training ready to go built in their staff.
Yeah, to your point, Richard, that is changing, and hands-on experience is so much more important now probably than ever before, because you and I have talked about this in the past. The traditional way of going to college and going for an advanced degree and then coming out and say you come out and you take a job as a programmer and that's what you're going to be for the next 30, 40 years. That's way outdated and out the window, right? You've got people like Tim Cook of Apple and other billion dollar companies saying, they don't really want people necessarily with these advanced degrees, but they do want people with hands-on training, people with the right certifications, and people who know what they're doing when they walk in the door. So how can businesses offer a career path, a training path as a business, while still aligning that to the business goals overall?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, I think when as someone who spent a decade in universities, Once you kind of step out of that university setting, the real world is much different, right? Your expectations are kind of overinflated in the university in terms of salary, in terms of what you're going to do. And when you get to when you get to your first job and you land and you say, well, I didn't learn this, I didn't learn this, I didn't learn all these things. And, when you go start, applying for jobs, the applications are very practical. For example, if I apply as a programmer for Microsoft, there is somebody who's watching me code on screen and asking me about very practical solutions to problems, not theoretical, but very practical, like implementation. To which you're kind of you're at a loss because those are things that were not kind of taught to you. And so I think that the value proposition that universities have had in the past are not really holding up very well to trends in the future. And as we look into even just in terms of, you mentioned kind of that typecasting of a person, I think that, we have to lay it down and put together a comprehensive career path for someone, right? And it says like, hey, we're going to train you to be a very good at IT security or very good at networking, but you might get 3 steps down the road and realize that person's not really engaged because that's not really what they were interested in to begin with. And I think having the flexibility and having that to say, hey, where else within our organization would this person really flourish, right? And I think just finding that for some individual is really what makes or breaks on the retention side, because finding something that they truly are passionate about and love doing, the returns on that investment are massive, and they don't think about clocking in and out. They think about just how much awesome stuff that they can do in that day and try to get done and really work much harder than you're kind of telling them to work, right? So I think that's that's the flexibility I think that is not generally out there right now in the IT career, in the IT fields.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned typecasting because I do want to get into that a little bit later in more detail. But first, I want to talk about the benefits of a training program, just kind of the nitty gritty kind of fundamentals of a training program. I was reading a study, HR Magazine study showed that companies that invest at least $1,500 per employee on training will see 24% more profit than businesses that spend less. And as I was researching for this webinar, I ran across a Howard Gardner quote: "If you think education is expensive, try estimating the cost of ignorance," which I thought was very pertinent to what we're talking about here. Because beyond the financial aspects of getting a solid training program in place, we're talking about training, but also career path. Specifically right now, though, training. Beyond the financial aspects of getting a good internal training program in place, what are some of the other ways that companies can benefit from the right kind of internal training program?
Yeah, I can start, and then you can feel free to interject. But I think that the first point is that this proposition to say the company is going to provide you with training towards your career. There was an old adage as well, and similar to your quote, that says, what if we train all our people and they leave? And the guy says back, well, what if we don't train them and they stay? And I think it's very apt to it has to be a win-win proposition for the company and for the employee. And I think that really the career guidance and the training that they go through and all these things are just that, right? We not just see like efficiencies on the job in terms of getting projects and getting things done because you've been trained your employees, but we also see like there's just the productivity and the happiness. And I think one of the key things that's really hardly ever mentioned is really the confidence that you build. And I think when you start seeing employees that really gain that confidence in their skill, those are the employees that become the advocates and start teaching and training other employees within your organization. And it kind of grows this exponentially when other employees start gaining this confidence in their abilities. And really, I think that is what kind of leads to impacting the bottom line at the end of the day for the business as well.
Yeah, Richard, you guys have a great program at INE, Get Hungry, Get Certified. Is that kind of what you're talking about there?
I think that's one example. I mean, we really try to encourage, I think it's part of the old eat your own dog food. We really try to get people, certified and really train them up. And it's not just kind of for stuff that is directly impactful to their job, but some of the certifications that we've sponsored and we tie a bonus on top of that as well. But some of them are not job related specifically, but I think it's more about creating that desire and a drive into someone, and really they kind of feel that you're giving to them, and so they, the giving back is not much of this about the salary and all these things. It's really about working together as one unit.
Yeah. I think Richard, you said something there that I think is critically important, right? And it's about that employee happiness, because I think metrics like this are always fun to talk about, because you do have to wonder, like, a $1,500 investment at 24%, more profit. Sometimes you have to wonder, like, how do they actually measure that? But when I look at like leading a global team or having 50 to 100 people working for me, that employee happiness is something that very much resonates with me as a leader, and I think that it very much builds that loyalty and that kind of feeling amongst your employees that you actually do care about their career growth and kind of their kind of their investment, or kind of your investment into their career. And I've noticed a significant improvement in that morale, in that happiness, in that productivity that just comes from the person who stops watching the clock, and they very much, they look at your investment on their training and say, well, gosh, you've invested in my training, and so I'm going to invest in you, not going to complain about my hours, not that we would ever ask anybody to work more hours than they need to, but you definitely get that loyalty that I think is sometimes immeasurable in metrics like this.
Yeah, and I think you probably know from your days in the military that people will fight for two things, right? They'll fight for the mission and the guy next to them.
Absolutely.
And if we're really forward about showing our support for the employees that we have working for us, if we show that, hey, we're really supportive of your objectives of getting trained up, getting certified, learning new things, because the technology is always changing, and we look across the board and we say, hey, why don't we just go hire somebody who's done X, Y, Z, right? And then you look and say, well, we've already built a sense of loyalty, a sense of this with the staff that we have. Let's train these guys and to do this job instead. And I think that you find that usually is a much better solution, because they have that buy-in to make it successful, right? Because you're investing in them.
I think that goes hand in hand with what you mentioned before with this whole idea of typecasting that I know Catherine's going to get to later. Yep. Is that we don't hire people to be just X for 20 years anymore, right? People want to have that opportunity inside the company too. And I know this is specifically apt for cybersecurity, where you may hire an incident response analyst who is fresh out of college. They're doing their due diligence in protecting a company, and they witness their very first penetration test. And they think, wow, that's the coolest thing in the world. I'd really like to be a penetration tester. And they immediately want to figure out how to move their career in that direction. And I think that's where we have to change that mentality, and we have to invest in that training so that we continue to keep that loyal person, and grow them organically inside of our organizations.
So to your point, Neal, we've established that training is pretty key, right? And while I was doing some research, IBM actually has done a lot of research on the benefits of training programs. And just to quote a couple stats here, employees who feel there is no room for career growth at a company are 12 times more likely to leave it. That's a big risk you're taking, right? Another IBM study shows productivity increases 10% with a well-trained workforce. And that speaks to your point, Neal, of people who feel they're being invested in, employees are being invested in, and they want to give their best to the company. But not to get into the scare tactic, but more of a reality check when we look at training works, but it's got to be the right kind of training, right? There can really be a detrimental impact to bad training platforms.
I think one of the issues that I've seen a lot of is that there are HR or, the C-suite who mandate, hey, we're going to have to do training across the organization. And instead of looking for solutions that engage the employees and come from that kind of groundswell from, beneath, they look out for a checkbox, right? It says, okay, we need Microsoft Azure training. Okay, we're going to go find someone who just has that checkbox, and we're going to mark that up. And then, the reports come back. Most of these training providers have kind of reports on engagement, and they look at the engagement and, well, no one's using it. And, a lot of times that the people that you're training, they're either looking at, GitHub or these things where they can interact and they can have these hands-on experiences, because that's how they feel like they're getting involved, right? And that's how they feel like they're staying current, instead of kind of just sitting back and everything being a lecture series, right? And this death by PowerPoint, and especially in this new Zoom era, right? Where we're always on watching these things. Like, you need more than that, right? You need that next level of engagement. And I think that's where it can be a detriment, is to think that, hey, we had a training program, it didn't work. And, you kind of think, why didn't that work? And it was, that lack of engagement from the employee side.
I think the engagement piece is really, really key here, because I can tell you that one of the things I hate is to whether it's mandated training, whether it's training that the team wants to do, is to see that look on their face as their eyes roll back in the back of their head, because they know they got to sit in front of a computer screen and just watch countless hours of training on end, and not have any engagement, not get anything at the return out of it. And to your point, as a leader, I can't sit there and say, well, gosh, how can I make this more engaging, or how can I make this more beneficial? And I think it's that overall strategy that says that training should be receive only, that I think makes for really bad training for the students.
And Neal, you've had a lot of experience in hiring the right kind of people. Richard, you've had a lot of success in implementing the right kind of training strategies. Can you talk a little bit about what I&E's training platform is like, and why a platform like that is beneficial and has been such a success for you?
Well, I mean, I think if we're kind of looking at it from the outside and say, what should I look for in a training, regardless if it's I&E or someone else? I mean, I think the keys really are, that we got to have like a depth of content where people are, they're coming in with some base knowledge, right? And I feel like a lot of companies out there have this assumption that everybody is starting fresh, and we're going to take them to a professional level, however they deem professional level. And, I don't think that in most cases that you're really hitting a depth where it says, okay, like I'm learning something new, right? I'm having those aha moments where that keep me engaged, and I think that, there's been studies done, it's called the flow, right? Where you get into that flow mindset where, it's not too hard and it's not too easy, but you feel like you're engaged and you're learning. And so I think that having making sure that the content depth is there. And I really think that the next part of that is really having assessments built in as well, so that there is this checkpoint that says, okay, I don't understand that like I thought I did, or okay, I do need to review this kind of stuff, right? I mean, we learned this, and I mean, I have kids right now up in virtual elementary school, right? And they're doing assessments on the computer, and they go, oh, okay, well, I really need to learn how to tell time better. I'm not sure when we're ever going to use analog clocks again, but I think that's some of the things, right? It's having an assessment there that that not only that you can look at as a student, but like that the employer can look at and say, oh, okay, well, hey, this he's really excelling and really taking off in a different area than I expected, and I need somebody in that area. So maybe we should talk about, hey, as Neal mentioned, a career path change here, because this seems like an area where they're really excelling.
I think that last part there that you mentioned as well, Richard, I think I would love that as a leader to be able to look at the skill sets and the training and what my team is doing across my entire organization, because I think that you may see somebody who takes off and really excels down, a particular path. And I think that shows a lot of engagement from a leadership perspective to be able to come to them and say, hey, look, I've seen you investing a lot of time into, a threat hunting course. Do you have an interest in being threat hunting? Would you like to get some on the job experience? Would you like to sit with our threat hunters and see what their job is like? I think that shows, again, back to your idea of engagement, that shows that real back and forth from an employee perspective, that you're willing to not just put you into that role for 20 years, but actually help you grow inside of an organization.
Yeah, no, 100%. And on the last point, I think really just, kind of reiterating the points we talked about is the third thing is really looking for ensuring that there is some hands-on interactive piece where it's applied learning, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, I think the application of the knowledge is reinforcement, and then that turns around and then gets into on the job skills where that function's being implemented. It can really be a really powerful circle of engagement and overall satisfaction from employees and employers.
I know that with the hands-on piece, when I start to look at resumes, probably within the last 5 or 6 years that I've been doing this, I actually skip through some of the traditional training elements and look for the areas where folks have gotten more hands-on in their training. What home labs are they setting up? What are some of the training providers or platforms that are out there that people are actually getting that hands-on experience? Because that is what is being more expected out of us, is to be ready to go on day one, with putting your hands on keyboard.
Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you, a resume we looked at from a developer where, they're not looking at as GitHub repositories or as
Mm-hmm.
Bitbucket repositories and kind of seeing, what have you done? Not just what do you know?
You gentlemen are both pools of knowledge, and we can talk about this all day, which is good because we have a whole series to attack a lot of these questions. But I want to get to a couple of audience questions, and really appreciate the audience sending in some questions and engaging with us on our webinar today. The first is from a network training manager at LendingTree, and the question, this is to both of you: as more companies move to remote work and work from home, what can companies do to retain talent instead of what they used to do? Things like offering amenities, casual clothes, other workplace perks, since remote workers really have all the amenities they need or want at home.
You want to start, Richard? You want me to go first?
Sure, I can start. I would say this is, this was my biggest fear back in March. I think, I'm very mobile around the office, and a lot of the staff that we have and a lot of the new hires that I don't normally interact with on a daily basis, I was having conversations with and would interact at the coffee machine or at something else, where you have these moments and a collection of these moments across the team and teams within teams are really what build that company culture. And so we've spent a lot of time building up a company culture and trying to reinforce that and making people feel very engaged within the company. And so this has been a really hard time to deal with that. And I think one of the things is really reinforcing when you have team meetings and when you have these things and calling people out and the accolades that come with it. I know several organizations that we've talked to that have, used our training to say, hey, he's on the top of the charts for the training this week. He's really doing a great job. Because there's not a whole lot of things you can do, in person right now. So, having the virtual training and then kind of celebrating that in team meetings and kind of showcasing, making people feel like they're being acknowledged and that they're being valued. And so, we've been really trying to do that as well. And, like you mentioned earlier, providing people with outlets of training that they can go through to feel like they can be engaged in something else. And I think when you have top talent, the last thing you want to do is have that top talent where their minds are going idle from kind of doing the repetitive tasks that they're on. And so really setting out new challenges and putting those challenges to the forefront, I think really keep people engaged and keep that, when they find those wins, those are huge victories. And, everybody kind of around them and around that circle really champions behind that. And I think that's what kind of ends up building up that team spirit and keeps that even without the, free snacks and Segway tours or whatever they're offering these days.
Free snacks are always good though.
Yeah. I think this question is super interesting just from the sense of like people have a tendency to forget that we offered a lot of these amenities because folks were away from home and they were away from family. We were trying to compensate them for being away from family. Mm-hmm. Now what we've done is we've got everybody who's focused at home. And I don't know about the folks who are listening to this, but I know it's not always easy to make that segregation between when you wake up and you start work and when you actually stop working. And so I think what's more important is recognizing that the same way that we appreciated folks for taking time away from their family to be into the office, we need to recognize them for taking time away from their family to show up for work or whatever it is. And I find something as easy as, just checking in with them, asking how their day's going, being more personable with them. I think all of those things, just showing that you understand that some of their more, emotional needs, for some of the stress that's going on in this new way of working, that engagement, taking that engagement to a more personal level as a leader, I think is super critical. I do know of one company that I've got some friends of mine that work for, that over the course of this entire, 10-month period that we've been in isolation, about every quarter, they have gotten unannounced, unsolicited gifts from their employer still to their house, in the way of just like, hey, little signs, little cards with the, the CEO's signature on that says, hey, we appreciate everything that you're going through. Keep your head up and things like that. So I think those outreach programs and those engagement programs, I think are very key to your point, Richard, not to let some of that top talent have that idle mindset.
I think that's such a great point, Neal. Just some acknowledgement, goes a long way. And there's a lot of studies that show that simple acknowledgement or a simple pat on the back can boost morale tenfold, right? Just a simple, hey, we see you, we know you're working hard, even though you're not in the office. We still see you. We see the impact that you're making, and see that you're working hard. I think that's a great point. Want to get to the next question. This is from Julio, who just chimed in over chat. Julio, so thanks for your question. He writes, as an employee, how can one go about handling a scenario where cross-training with other teams like desktop support, interacting with network or system engineers, doesn't take away the day-to-day focus and managers' concerns of potentially switching teams?
Thanks for that question, Julio. I'll jump in on this one first, Richard, if you don't mind. I think I know it's probably pretty difficult, but I almost feel like, this is where, there needs to be that employee-employer interaction where, you acknowledge that you want to be in a different career field. You want to have that conversation with your team and with your leadership and with the function in your organization to say, hey, I know I'm doing this job over here, but I would really like to see my career progress, over here in this organization. And so as a result of this, I want to commit some time to doing this training or to seeing what I can do to do a career path. And maybe it's one of those things where you have to, you have to look for opportunities to kind of train on the job with some of the folks that are in that new area that you want to kind of go work towards, or you may have to take some lunch hours or things like that to do some training. But I think the first thing that I would encourage anybody that's looking to make that type of career transition is make sure your leadership knows. Have that conversation with them first and ask them for that support. And I think that should be your first step and get that support. If they shut you down, if they're like, sorry, we don't have the tolerance for that, then I think you have to make some interpersonal decisions on yourself as to whether that's the type of culture, again, to Richard's point, earlier, that you see yourself growing internally. But I think that you should really have that conversation internally first and see if you can make inroads in that area.
Yeah, and I think just to tack on that, I mean, I think once you start showing value to the company, and as even as you start out as a liaison to another group or another team, once there's real value being shown there as well, it becomes a really easy conversation, and it just makes it so much easier to say, I'm the go-to guy from this team to that team, and I feel like my career is better served on this team, but this team, the other team that I'm currently on, is going to use me as a pathway to get into that. So really being a cross-functional liaison there is a good way, a good foot into that doorway.
Julio, thank you so much for your question. Thanks everyone for their questions. We've gotten a few more that we will address over email in the coming days, but we are already about 11 minutes past our deadline. We want to try and keep this to about a 25-minute format because we know that all of you are busy and we want to make this efficient, but hope you'll forgive us for this first one. And I think this has been a great conversation. Hope you guys have gotten a lot out of it. Richard, Neal, thank you for all of your expertise and for offering what I think and hopefully our audience thinks are some really good solutions and some innovative ideas for helping people's businesses grow and get better. Everyone can improve, right? So thank you guys for joining us. I want to let you know our next episode is scheduled for Wednesday, January 20th. We'll be sending out some emails to let you know how you can sign up for that. We'll be focusing on your top IT strategies for 2021. We'll be in a new year. Thank goodness, right? And answering questions about whether your company, it really is poised to defend and protect itself in the new year with all of the new technological challenges that we're all working with. And we'll talk about how you can work to overcome some of the biggest challenges. So we will be providing more details on the guests for that series, but again, or for that episode. But again, it's Wednesday, January 20th at 2 p.m. You can head over to ine.com and click the resources tab at the very bottom of the page to register. Or like I said, just keep an eye out on your email. We'll send you some email links to register, make it really, really easy for you to do that. In the meantime, if you have a topic you'd like to discuss or you'd like to hear from us about, you can email me directly, kbrown@ine.com, or you can use the hashtag Biz-Tech Blueprint and tag us at INE on social media. It doesn't matter what platform you use, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, anything, we'll find it. We'll track it down. And just a quick reminder, this is being recorded. We'll be sending all of you an email with this recorded version tomorrow. I want to thank you all again for joining. Thanks to Neal and Richard for all your expertise. And Catherine Brown, along with Richard McLain and Neal Bridges. Have a great day. Have a fantastic Tuesday and a great rest of the week. Bye-bye.